We're at Gene's Trailhead in the Calico Basin, just outside of Las Vegas. And the goal today is a circuit around Damsel Peak. It's the second week in March. Temperature right now is about 46 degrees. The total length of this trip is going to be around 30 miles. So I want to catch every bit of daylight possible so you can see, yeah, it's really early. Anyway, we're going to start out on the Half Wilson Trail and head over to Damsel Peak, make a complete circuit of Damsel Peak, see how that goes, and if everything goes according to plan, we will head back down the Brownstone Trail and then back to the trailhead, hopefully while it's still light. Let's see what happens. Here's our ultimate goal, Damsel Peak, making that complete circuit around this peak. And we've got a few waypoints here before we reach Damsel Peak. One is to get from the Calico Basin, where we are right now, to the Brownstone Basin. And that's over Peak 3844 Hill. We'll be on the Half Wilson Trail until we reach Brownstone Basin. And then what we're going to do is head over to Little Red Rock, which is on the far side of Damsel Peak. So you'll see this approach to Little Red Rock and just how to get there if you ever want to go to Little Red Rock from the Calico Basin. So here we go. Let's head over to the Brownstone Basin and then Little Red Rock. Okay, we're just about at the Brownstone Basin. The Brownstone Basin is right over this ridge ahead, and then you can see Summerlin Ridge beyond. And what we're going to do is we're going to head over this ridge and then turn left toward Damsel Peak. But I just want to orient you where we are here at this point. This is Peak 3844 Hill, the Half Wilson Trail circling around the base of Peak 3844 Hill. There's Peak 3844. Awesome little peak to climb if you want to summit a neat peak very quickly. And here are the Rainbow Mountains. There's Mount Wilson on the right and Indecision Peak to the left of Mount Wilson. And then here is Blue Diamond Hill. So that gives you an idea, and then this is the Half Wilson Trail. Gives you an idea where we are. This adventure today is going to be about 30 miles. If we make it the whole way, that's going to be a real challenge. But the first thing we're going to do is head over to the Little Red Rock area, and that's actually on the east side of Damsel Peak. And we're going to circle the east side of Damsel Peak and then take a gully upward back to the Brownstone Basin and perhaps summit Gateway Peak, which is a peak just north of Damsel Peak. So we'll see how all that works. But anyway, let's continue on the Half Wilson Trail. We're almost in the Brownstone Basin. Okay, here we are at the end of the Half Wilson Trail as it's emptying into a wash at the edge of the border between the Calico Basin and the Brownstone Basin, which is over this ridge ahead. What we're going to do is we're going to skirt the right side of this next hill and then find the Brownstone Road and then a split off trail that's going to take us around Damsel Peak. And here is the tip of Damsel Peak in the morning sunlight. One thing we're going to do as we loop around Damsel Peak is to look at various summit approaches. So that should be interesting. And then just to give you the orientation, here is Peak 3844 Hill, Half Wilson Trail, Blue Diamond Hill. And the reason I take so much time to point out these landmarks is that this is my GPS. I navigate by large landmarks, and I find it much more peaceful and non-technical than to be looking at my phone all the time, looking for GPS coordinates. I don't like anything between me and the wilderness, and so that's why I navigate by large reference points. Okay, onward toward the Brownstone Basin over this ridge. As we're leaving the Calico Basin, looking back, a few reference points begin to present themselves. One is, here is Gray Cap Ridge, awesome ridge between Calico Basin and the Brownstone Basin. And the Gray Cap Ridge is a great adventure in itself. Very long ridge, beautiful, spectacular views the whole way. Here is Craft Mountain in the Calico Basin. There's a great uh, adventure on Las Vegas area trails that takes the um, Craft Mountain Loop around Craft Mountain. That's a great workout trail. And then here are some trails in the Calico Basin. This trail here is what I call Powerline Maintenance Road, cuts right through the Calico Basin from the Brownstone Basin and over to the Calico Hills. Lots of adventures on the Calico Hills. I've got a lower Calico Hills loop and an upper Calico Hills loop. And here is Rainbow Mountain. And no. Sorry, that is Bridge Mountain. And the reason I mix them up is, yeah, Rainbow Mountain's a little bit similar. There's Rainbow Mountain. And just to the right of that is Juniper Peak. And then Mount Wilson, Indecision Peak, in the Rainbow Mountains wilderness on the west side of Red Rock Canyon. And then here again is Blue Diamond Hill. And you can see, yeah, Peak 3844 Hill right here. We just circled what is now the left side in this direction. Looking back, we circled Peak 3844 Hill on the Half Wilson Trail, and now we're heading across the wilderness here, just brief space of wilderness to connect with the Brownstone Road and then some other connections. This adventure is going to be a combination of roads and trails and then a lot of wilderness to navigate. So you'll get a good picture, some rare views of the wilderness in this area that you may not see anywhere else on the internet. So let's continue. Continuing over this ridge into the Brownstone Basin, but just wanted to point out, found a little unmarked trail, and we'll take that trail, speeds things up and helps protect the wilderness whenever you can find a trail that is leading to where you're headed. There's the Calico Basin. Here's that little trail. There's Peak 3844 Hill. So let's continue over this ridge into the Brownstone Basin. Okay, we are in the Brownstone Basin, and I'll point out some views as they continue to present themselves. As I mentioned, I'll be talking about potential summit approaches to Damsel Peak. There's Damsel Peak. Here's the south side of Damsel Peak. And as we get closer, we'll look at an approach up the south side of Damsel Peak. Here is the southeast ridge of Damsel Peak, and we'll be pointing out um, that approach. In addition, here is the La Madre Mountains ridgeline. El Padre Mountain is on the left. Then next is La Madre Mountain. And then this little mountain here, this little bump, is actually got a name. It's Little La Madre. So there are three additional peaks beyond the, well, actually this I think is Little La Madre. Yeah, there you go. So those are the three peaks. Let's make it a little more clear. Little La Madre, La Madre, El Padre, and by the way, there is what's called a notch between El Padre and La Madre, and it is an approach to La Madre Mountain from this direction. Pretty rocky, very loose, steep, but you can make it up to La Madre Mountain and El Padre Mountain through the notch. And I've got a couple adventures on Las Vegas area trails that almost get to the summit of that notch. Have not yet made it all the way through. So yeah, this wash is the first wash in the Brownstone Basin. We're looking for the wash that's actually Brownstone Road. This is kind of like a false Brownstone Road. So we need to go over one more ridge line. Let's find Brownstone Road. That's going to be very important. Okay, more sites presenting themselves. I mentioned Gray Cap Ridge. We took a look at it a little earlier from the Calico Basin. Here's Upper Gray Cap Ridgeline, and that high point on the left is what I call the southeastern summit of Gray Cap Ridge, and then it continues along to the true summit, which is over here. And Gray Cap Ridge is like being in a lost world. It's pretty amazing. Nobody gets up there, or very few people get up there. So it's like you're in untouched wilderness. Friend of mine saw some bighorn sheep up there not too long ago. But anyway, that's Gray Cap Ridge. And as long as we're here looking at Damsel Peak, I mentioned I'd point out some sites here. The south approach, yeah, we need a better perspective. We'll get it in a bit, but let's look at the summit area. This is the Southern Pinnacle. Here's the southern summit, and then there's a dip or a saddle that goes to the northern summit. And I have an adventure that goes up to the northern summit from the other side. Nothing that's hit the pinnacle and the southern summit yet, but that's coming. So yeah, in the southeast ridge line of Damsel Peak is not that ridge in the background, but in the foreground. And you can take that up toward the pinnacle. So that's an adventure that's coming. One thing I wanted to point out is we're going to hit Brownstone Road in a bit. And as you're topping these ridge lines, what you want to be looking for is some road connectors here that are going to branch off. There's a little road. It's going to branch off from Brownstone Road and head around Damsel Peak toward Summerlin Ridge area. That's not Summerlin Ridge. Summerlin Ridge is right here, but it's going to head over to those little roads are going to head over to Little Red Rock, which is at the base of Summerlin Ridge, and this other ridge to the left of Summerlin Ridge, both in the shadows right now. Anyway, that gives you a little idea about a few more reference points here. And then now you're looking over across Brownstone Basin into the rising sun, and just beneath the rising sun is the Las Vegas Valley and Strip. And just beautiful southwestern desert plants, yucca plants, creosote bush, sage. Okay, let's continue on toward Brownstone Road and those split off roads that we saw, just the tip of the split off roads right up in this area. That's what we're looking for. Okay, onward. Okay, now we're on a flood levee in the Brownstone Basin, and Brownstone Road is on one side of this levee. I think it's the right side. It could be the left side. Not totally sure. There's been a lot of flood action here that has made it less discernible at this point. But anyway, yeah, we're heading toward these little roads that one of them is going to split off to the right and lead around the right side of Damsel Peak, which is right in the center here. Okay, the mystery, where is Brownstone Road? It has been solved. This is Brownstone Road. And it's leading down toward the Las Vegas area, over in this direction, toward a little bit toward Blue Diamond Hill. At least the left side is that levee I've been on for just a little while. Rainbow Mountains in the distance, and then here's a great shot of Gray Cap Ridgeline. The upper ridgeline from the southeast summit to the northwest summit. Then you can see the La Madre Mountains cliffs and Damsel Peak, south side. And what we want here is a little road that's going to facilitate our continued loop of Damsel Peak. And here what we're looking at for the first time is Little Red Rock. There's Little Red Rock, owned by the Howard Hughes Corporation. Beautiful little area. And so we're going to be traversing between Little Red Rock down here and Damsel Peak's east side. So right through this area is where we want to be. But I think there's a road down over here, and I like to take roads where I can, even though they're a little bit out of the way. They facilitate the traverse through the wilderness and help you traverse a lot of the gullies. And there's going to be a series of gullies and washes, and we want to speed those up as much as we can by being on roads where that is possible. So anyway, yeah, Brownstone Road here. And let's cross this next ridge, gully and ridge, and then turn up toward the east side of Damsel Peak, between that and Little Red Rock. Here's that little east-west road I was looking for. There's a series of pretty steep washes here in the Brownstone Basin, and on the east side of Damsel Peak. And where I can find roads, those roads will make crossing the washes that are like mini canyons. It'll make it easier. And so, yeah, here's that road. And then here it is heading back toward the Calico Basin. So this is what you want to find as you are making your way around Damsel Peak. Okay, here's that road that I pointed out from Gray Cap Ridge a few weeks ago. And this road takes you over to Little Red Rock. And I'll be finding a way to navigate around the east side of Damsel Peak when we get to the Little Red Rock area. There's Damsel Peak, and here is where we want to be. But I want to be on roads as much as possible because there are going to be a series of deep washes that are like mini canyons that are coming down from Damsel Peak. So anyway, yeah, and here's Summerlin Ridge on the other side of Little Red Rock. This other ridge, I'll figure out what it is at some point, but you can see Little Red Rock runs along the base of this ridge between Damsel Peak and Little Red Rock. And then over this way, there's the La Madre Mountains cliffs. And here is Gray Cap Ridge from the summit on the Gray Cap Peak on the right. And over along that ridge line, Gray Cap Ridge line to the southeast summit. And we've got adventures in this area. And then just complete the 360. See basically where we are. There's Las Vegas Valley ahead, little helicopter landing site maybe, who knows. And then back to Summerlin Ridge and Damsel Peak and our direction. Okay, to be honest, I haven't been on the roads very much because they're all leading in the direction that makes the trip a lot longer. And so I'm taking the Wolverine approach to the right side of Damsel Peak and the Little Red Rock area up there. The Wolverine approach is basically you choose a straight line. I don't know if this is true or if it's legend, but Wolverines, they just go in a straight line, and if there's a mountain in the way or if there's a canyon in the way, they just go straight through it. So yeah, lots of washes to traverse here. This one is these two are a lot more tame than just came down this one. Some of them are like canyons, mini canyons. So yeah, it can be a little challenging, but still it seems like more of a straight line approach is called for here in order to reach this area, which is our next target on the right base, or the eastern base of Damsel Peak. What do you know, just came across another road, and this will help me for a little while, but then it's going to give out. Actually, this is, I think, the road you want to take if you're heading toward this canyon wash. And this is actually the approach, the southeastern approach to the summit. And you head up through that canyon there and keep to your left, eventually ascend the ridge that you see here on the left side of that canyon and work your way up toward the Southern Pinnacle and beyond. There's the Southern Pinnacle, a little bit hidden because it's not prominent. It's hidden by the southern summit behind. But anyway, yeah, Southern Pinnacle. So, yes, we are continuing now. We're circling around the eastern side, or approaching the eastern side of Damsel Peak, where we're going to be in the Little Red Rock area. And again, here is a ridge I haven't identified yet, but just to the right is Summerlin Ridge. So that gives you a little idea where we are here. And we are about, I'd say an hour and a half into this adventure so far. Another potential approach to Damsel Peak Summit. There's that gully that I've been talking about. On the left side is the, what I call the Southeast Summit Approach Ridge, up to the Pinnacle, Southern Pinnacle, right there in the center, and then around the left side and beyond up to the southern summit. And then now you can see that saddle, and I believe the northern summit is over here. Not sure from this angle, but here's another approach right up this gully to the northern summit, or at least the saddle between. So there's a couple additional approaches to Damsel Peak, but what we want to see is the approaches on the eastern side, which I haven't explored yet. There is Little Red Rock. We are closing in on Little Red Rock. We'll go through that area. Actually, Little Red Rock is spread out, number of clumps of sandstone hills there. There's another one. And then there's Summerlin Ridge. The base of Summerlin Ridge here is a large one. There are petroglyphs down there in those hills. Pretty nice. And then if you went straight over that lower part of Little Red Rock, you'd end up at the upper end of Lake Mead Boulevard. So yeah, and let's continue around. In the morning, the Las Vegas Valley is very hazy. There it is in the center. Here's one of the little washes that I just descended on the far side and then ascended up to this side. Gray cap ridge line on the west side of Brownstone Basin, and then back to Damsel Peak. And the direction we are heading, right along the right or eastern base of Damsel Peak. So let's continue. Canyon's getting deeper. However, looks like there's a road over here. Takes me a little out of my way, but if it leads up to the other side of this series of the next couple canyons, it could actually be faster than going straight over to this little red rock area. So I think I'm going to take the road, see where it leads. So heading down here, see if we can get over the next couple ridges without too much slow climbing. Well, that little road, even though it looked like it was going out of my way, actually circled around and is heading straight toward this little red rock section ahead. And it's heading along the east side of Damsel Peak, so it's going in the direction we want to go. There's Damsel Peak. Let's just stick to this little road as long as it is helping us. Here's a section of Little Red Rock, the upper area. And you can see how the red rocks are in a region just on the east side of Damsel Peak. There are red rocks on the other side, but this is the Little Red Rock area. The base of Damsel Peak, eastern base. Okay, let's continue upward and see how far this road's going to take us. Another look at this section of Little Red Rock. I have to come here and explore later, but got a lot of miles to cover today, so not going to have time to explore. You can look in LasVegasAreaTrails.com. There's an adventure where I explored another section of Little Red Rock closer to the Lake Mead area. But yeah, need to come back here. I bet there are petroglyphs here. In that other exploration, I did document some petroglyphs. So just search Little Red Rock on LasVegasAreaTrails.com and you can see some petroglyphs in the mid section of Little Red Rock. But for now, let's continue along here, and our target is the opposite side of this ridge ahead. I want to see if that's going to lead us between the La Madre Mountains and Gateway Peak. Well, that road's taking me right by this little section of Little Red Rock, and so here's a closer look. Damsel Peak in the background. Yeah, these little sections of red rock may look small from a distance, but wow, when you're here, they're very tall. A lot of wandering you could do. Another view of this section of Little Red Rock as we continue to approach the north edge of Damsel Peak. Continuing up the east side of Damsel Peak, along the east side, and yeah, there's a little gully up here that I forgot to document, but anyway, that looks like a potential summit approach gully. And continuing to wind upward in this little wash. You can see the La Madre Mountain cliff line. We definitely need to turn left and around the northern side of Damsel Peak, connect with Gateway Peak. Here's a little more of what we're looking at here. Beautiful terrain. Okay, onward. Okay, now we're rounding the very unfamiliar northern area of Damsel Peak. Looking at the Damsel Peak area, a lot of gradual slopes here. It looks like it'd be possible to summit the northern side of Damsel Peak from this area. And we're in a very nice wash at this point. Looking down toward Las Vegas Valley. There's the strip in the haze. And here's Frenchman Mountain above Lake Mead area. And more importantly, here is another perspective on Summerlin Ridge. And then that other ridge line just to the left or north. So let's continue rounding the northern end of Damsel Peak and see if we can find a route between the La Madre Mountains cliffs and the north side of Damsel Peak. And this up here could be Gateway Peak. Not sure at this point. Like I said, it's a very unfamiliar perspective, but that looks like a good candidate. Okay, onward. There's a pretty nice little wash so far, leading me around the north side of Damsel Peak. Believe this is the northern edge of Damsel Peak. We'll get a better look in a bit. I just wanted to take it from this perspective. Beautiful area here. And it does look like there are a number of gradual approach ridges here. So this is probably one of the easier ways to summit Damsel Peak. I think that when you're up in this area, you'd be able to see the northern end of Damsel Peak. I don't think that's the northern edge, but I think you'd be able to see it from that point. We don't know. Like I said, this is unfamiliar territory, which is, by the way, why I keep aware of all the landmarks, so that when I'm in a place like this, I know that I know what route I can take to get out of this area, circle around, knowing this is Little Madre up here, and that beyond it is the La Madre Mountains ridge line. I just know I need to stay to the left of that. And if I keep to the left of the La Madre Mountains cliffs, that's going to take me back down into the Brownstone Basin. We don't know what kind of obstacles there are between here and there, but it's fun to discover, figure it out. Okay, this wash is continuing to work out, and now my best guess is this is La Madre Mountain, and this is Gateway Peak. Now what I'd like to do is try and navigate around the near side of Gateway Peak and then summit it from behind. So I would take a right near the base of Gateway Peak. But we've got a ways to go before making those decisions. And then here's the northern area of Damsel Peak. And it looks like this is a preferred dirt bike and ATV four-wheel drive wash here. Probably accessed from the upper end of Lake Mead. Although there's so much construction up there, I'm not certain about what kind of parking you would have. And that's one of the reasons that I made this longer trek from Jean's Trailhead in the Calico Basin. Here's the little wash road that I've been traversing. And that's a look back down into the Las Vegas Valley. Some of the haze is disappearing due to the angle of the sun, which is really nice. So here is Frenchman Mountain. We don't know how many more shots of that we'll get as we head around the corner ahead, the opposite direction to this. Here is the northern approach area to Damsel Peak. And let's look around here. Yeah, on all the maps, these roads end, and I'm hoping that when they end up ahead, we're not going to be dealing with dry waterfalls, ledges. But in the meantime, Yeah, here is what I believe is Gateway Peak, and my hope is to be able to turn right, circle around the right side of Gateway Peak, and then summit. At least on the maps, that looks much more gradual, but we don't know what things are going to be looking like up there. I think this little wash road is going to end very soon. But anyway, that's where we are at this point. Little La Madre. Relatively untouched area, and as we get beyond this little road, it's probably very untouched. Well, here we are at the end of anything that looks like a road. We're at the base of what I'm very sure now is Gateway Peak. So all I need to do is get up there, find a way, and there are some potential approach routes around here. So it's just a matter of getting up Gateway Peak, and then the other side going down into Brownstone Basin should be much more gradual. But I want to go a little further up this wash now, and as it gets more rugged, and just see if maybe this gradual area might be as gradual up there as it looks from down here and lead us up to the summit of Gateway Peak. We don't know. It's either between these two high points, or it would be to the right of this high point, somewhere up in here. But it doesn't look impossible. We just need to explore a little further. And so, looking around, you see junipers, pines. We're definitely in an upper area. I imagine we're around 4,500 feet. Not sure. I guess I should use my altimeter watch, but yeah, I often will gauge the altitude just by the types of plants that I see. In fact, let's go ahead and check the altimeter watch and just see how close I might have been. Okay, actually we're around 5,500 feet. Another 500 feet will put us on Gateway Peak. So yeah, I was a little short. Okay, so anyway, let's continue on up and see if we can find a way up Gateway Peak. By the way, let's take a look at what is visible here. We already looked at a couple ascent points, but we did not look down this wash. And here you see Southern Ridge. Las Vegas Valley, and right down this wash is Frenchman Mountain. And Sunrise Mountain would be to the left. And then here we're looking up toward Damsel Peak. And this wash continues between Damsel Peak and on the left and Gateway Peak on the right. Yeah, this last stretch is getting a little more rugged. And I could descend and attempt to get around Gateway Peak. There's Gateway Peak. You can see cliffs on this side. But I want to ascend a little further on this wash and see how things look ahead. So yeah, and here's looking down the wash. As you can see, we are getting more and more narrow and starting to have boulders to climb over. And you can see the walls are getting higher around me. There's toward Damsel Peak, but that may just be this little section. So let's continue onward up to the saddle up ahead. And beyond that saddle, we're going down into Brownstone Basin. We can find a way. But here's a nice little discovery. Here's a little path, and it's about, we're about 500 to 800 feet below the summit of Gateway Peak. That may be an entranceway, passageway up to the summit. We'll have to see when we get up a little further up this wash, but this little path is guiding around rough places in the wash, which is a good discovery. And then there we are looking back down toward Summerlin Ridge area. Summerlin Ridge is actually to the right of that ridge you're looking at. And this is looking down the wash. So doing a 360. Yeah, things are getting steeper all around, but it's actually very doable up to this point. We'll have to see what that final summit approach, if there is one, looks like up ahead. Well, I'm going to try my luck up to this saddle area. Looks like there might be a few vertical spots on the way, right near the summit. It looks like there's a little head wall, but maybe there's a way around. My experience is that if there's something vertical over 6 feet, that's pretty much going to turn me around. But the way back to Brownstone Basin is much less of a distance if I can get to the top of this saddle. So we shall see. And here's a look around. And there you can see Summerlin Ridge on the right and that other ridge to the left. So, and then Las Vegas Valley beyond down to Frenchman Mountain. The afternoon sun, things are getting a lot more clear. And then, yeah, Frenchman Mountain, and to the left of that is Sunrise Mountain. And then guess what? Here in the distance is Gas Peak, that high point. So here's the thing. I just need to get up to this saddle. And then it should be a nice gradual downhill all the way back. We shall see. And by the way, we're looking at Gateway Peak and a saddle between two high points on Gateway Peak. Well, in a very uncharacteristic way, I wove my way up through rocks, very, very steep, loose rock that was hanging over drop-offs. Anyway, here I am up on Gray Cap Peak. I mean, not Gray Cap, Gateway Peak. I can't even think of the place that I'm at. That was fairly unnerving. So I did make it to the saddle. That's the good news. There's one side of Gateway Peak. And this is probably the summit. We'll go up there. Good news is that it looks like the far side of the peak is much more gradual, but we don't know for sure. So this is going to be interesting. I am up here on Gateway Peak, but not sure how I'm going to get down. I don't think I'll do something like this again. Anyway, as long as I'm up here, let's take a look at Frenchman Mountain between the Las Vegas Valley and where we are. Sunrise Mountain to the right, to the left of Frenchman Mountain. Yeah, I'm probably not going to make much sense up here. This was just quite unnerving for me, the non-rock climber. But I made it. And then over here is the north summit of Damsel Peak. The canyon that I came up when I navigated around the east side of Damsel Peak, and we were in the Red Rock area, Little Red Rock, as we navigated through there. So yeah, and what else do we have here? There's Little La Madre. Definitely not feeling like climbing on those cliffs today. I've had enough cliffs for a whole day. There's La Madre Mountain and El Padre Mountain. And there's a nice little passageway between. So let's head up to the summit of Gateway Peak and then look over the other side, and hopefully I'm just betting on having a more gradual downhill based on maps I looked at earlier. So let's really hope that that bears out. Okay, onward to the summit. Okay, here we are on Gateway Peak summit. Let's look around. Hey, there's Trailhead Peak, the east side. And here's a look down on Gray Cap Ridge. There's Potosi Mountain. And the Rainbow Mountains. White Rock Mountain down in Red Rock Canyon. Looking down the Brownstone Basin over to the summit, northern summit of Damsel Peak. There's the canyon I ascended from the east side of Damsel Peak, and you can see Little Red Rock below. Southern Ridge. There's the Las Vegas Valley and the northern part of the Strip. You can see the stratosphere down there. Frenchman Mountain. And there's the other side across the saddle, the other side of Gateway Peak. Little La Madre, maybe. This may more likely be Little La Madre. It's not a good place to stand here. Okay, I'm back. There's La Madre Mountain, El Padre Mountain. So I'll do a 360 circuit here, if I can turn. Not a lot of room up here. Oh, by the way, Blue Diamond Hill. We got a long way to go before we get home. And did I point out Gas Peak? Okay, let's find our way off of this Gateway Peak and see if we can hit the Brownstone Trail below. It's going to be down in this area. Here we go. Okay, there's looking back toward the summit. Now I'm heading down this backside of the peak, looking for a more gradual descent. Let's see what we find. Okay, there's a potential descent gully right down in this direction. But what I am going to do is circle around here just to get a look at the other side of the peak down here, see if there's another descent route or maybe even a trail. Well, this is the edge over here. Looks pretty vertical, so I'm guessing that my best descent route is going to be down this gully over here, and hopefully we won't be faced with any drop-offs. It looks like once I get down to this area, we've got it made, basically. So yeah, let's go back to this gully and head down. And by the way, there's Trailhead Peak, and here are the La Madre cliffs, the ridge line there. And so yeah, we're heading down to this area below and then angling over to the left and down Brownstone Basin. Let's see how that all works out. And by the way, here's a good sign. Looks like somebody has descended down into this gully. You can see the marks of a kind of trail or a slide. Anyway, they descended from the summit down into this gully. So let's let's get over to the gully and head down. Okay, gully entrance ahead. May be somewhat of a slide, we don't know, but we're going to find out. Hopefully no vertical drop-offs, but we don't know that either. Down we go. Well, it's starting out gradual enough, no drop-offs. Still, I need to get all the way down to this area. Can we make it? We'll see. I can't see around corners, so still could be a drop-off. We don't know, but we're heading down that gully on the west side, northwest side of Gateway Peak. Well, that gully really wasn't too bad. A lot of brush. I ended up going down the ridge when I descended to a certain point, the ridge to the left here. But there's the gully that I descended, and yeah, it cost me a jacket and a sound muffler. It was so tight and sharp. But look where we are. In a wider wash, which is a good sign. Hopefully we'll be able to take this all the way down to the Brownstone Trail. We will find out. But I would say that if you're going to ascend or descend Gateway Peak, here's your gully. This will do it. And this, by the way, is on the northwest side of the peak. And there is one of the high areas on the way down. And the summit area would be up this gully and then take a right and ascend to the summit somewhere in this area. As we continue down this very nice wash at a semi walk run, and there it is uphill. There are the La Madre mountain cliffs, and there is Little La Madre. La Madre and El Padre. And let's take a look over in this direction. Got a good view of Gray Cap Peak. We were up there just not too long ago. And coming down that wash was just awesome. There's Damsel Peak. And here, continuing down this nice wash at a semi walk run. And this is going to end up taking us down into Brownstone Basin. Okay, the wash had a pour over, and so I had to ascend this ridge and then descend down to where the wash widened and continued. And you can see it ahead. There it is, continuing downward. I think that there will be no more pour overs. You never know, but I think the next thing we're going to do is connect with the Brownstone Trail, and then it's pretty much a walk run all the way back. The reason I'm enlarging this is there's the east side of Trailhead Peak, and we know the Brownstone Trail is between where we are and Trailhead Peak. So we'll be hitting the upper Calico Hills in the Brownstone Basin, and then taking a left and heading down the Brownstone Trail. Here we go. By the way, that's the direction of Damsel Peak. And Gateway Peak is up in this direction. Okay, down we go. Well, at the risk of jinxing things, I would say we're going to be landing down on the Brownstone Trail very soon as we keep heading down this nice wide wash. And the upper Calico Hills, we're going to just totally bypass them. They're right over this ridge. And behind and above is Trailhead Peak. So there you have the lay of the land here. We should be hitting the Brownstone Trail somewhere down in this area. And then just to do a 360, let's look around, see where we are. Damsel Peak is up in this direction. And up here are the La Madre Mountains. El Padre on the left. La Madre to the right. And then Little La Madre. And let's see if we can see Gateway Peak. Yeah, there's Gateway Peak. And we've descended from Gateway Peak. And yeah, Damsel Peak is in this direction. There you see some of the cliffs on the west side of Damsel Peak. We'll get a better view in a bit. But now we're making up some time. And as I said, this is about a 30-mile loop when it comes down to it. Okay, onward and downward. Continuing down this wash, we'll be connecting with the Brownstone Trail soon. But just thought I'd point out, yeah, Trailhead Peak in the center there. And then here is the opposite side from what you usually see of the upper Calico Hills in the Brownstone Basin. That reservoir that we filmed before is on the other side of these hills. And then here are the La Madre Cliffs. Back up the wash over toward Damsel Peak. We'll get a better view of Damsel Peak in a bit. But let's continue down this wash. I think it's going to empty right into the Brownstone Road and Trail. Nope, I was disoriented a little bit. There are the upper Calico Hills in the Brownstone Basin where the reservoir is, and behind is the west side of Damsel Peak. We will have made a complete circuit around 30 miles by the time we're done. And then let's look up the wash here. There are the La Madre Mountains. And those Calico Hills I was looking at a little earlier are right up here. So yeah, that's not the upper Calico Hills where you find the reservoir. Okay, continuing down, this wash should be connecting with the Brownstone trail and road. In fact, we might be on it right now. And we'll be heading down this direction to the left of this Gray Cap Ridge here. And then looking down into the Las Vegas Valley. There's the strip. Much better lighting this time of day. Okay, let's continue downward. Yeah, I think we are actually on the Brownstone Trail. What do you know? Okay, onward. Nope, wrong again. I wasn't on the Brownstone Wash and the Brownstone Trail. But here we are. This wash I've been in is now emptying in to the Brownstone Wash, where it will continue downward. If we're above the beginning of Brownstone Road, I'll show you where Brownstone Trail ends and Brownstone Road begins. But now, yes, we are in the Brownstone Wash. And just a quick 360. And I won't name anything here. By now you should know all the landmarks. Continuing downward. Okay, here's where the Brownstone Trail ends and Brownstone Road is below. Right here where it's blocked off to vehicles. And there, straight down the basin, you can see the strip. Then around this direction, west side of Damsel Peak. And the La Madre Mountains ridgeline. Trailhead Peak. And Gray Cap ridgeline. Okay, continuing on down to the connection with the Half Wilson Trail, and then ultimately Jean's Trailhead, completing this Damsel Peak loop of about 30 miles. And now here is where we started the loop, basically the south side of Damsel Peak. Now you can see the south and the west side, and the La Madre Mountains ridgeline and Brownstone Road. Summerlin Ridge, we've seen a lot of that. And then the Las Vegas Strip in much better lighting. Well lit up in the afternoon. And continuing down Brownstone Road, our next connection is the Half Wilson Trail. I left the Brownstone Road, took this little right branching wash. We'll take it around this, the edge here of the Gray Cap Ridge area, and circle around and find the Half Wilson Trail, show you where it is. Okay, continuing down this branching wash from the Brownstone Road, and here you can see I had the lower saddle for Gray Cap Ridge, and you've seen that before if you've looked at the Gray Cap Ridge videos. And we're continuing around the lower part of this ridge, and then we'll connect with the Half Wilson Trail and head back to Jean's Trailhead. And beautiful lighting. Here is the Las Vegas Strip. Okay, let's continue on and let's find that Half Wilson Trail and head back to Jean's Trailhead. Nope, I jumped the gun on that Gray Cap Ridge lower saddle. Here it is, just a little bit below where we were when I pointed it out before. And there's Gray Cap Ridge, Southern Summit. Damsel Peak. This right splitting wash on the way down. Now we circle around the base of this mountain on the right, or this hill on the right, and then connect with the Half Wilson Trail. There's Peak 3844 Hill. Straight ahead, what we're going to do is cross under some power lines, cross the power line maintenance road, and circle around the left side of Peak 3844 on the Half Wilson Trail. We'll catch that just past the power lines. And then here is the Calico Basin, Gray Cap Ridge, and the high desert we are in right now. So let's head down, catch the Half Wilson Trail, and circle around the left side of Peak 3844 Hill. And here we are now, catching the Peak 3844 Trail. I mean the Half Wilson Trail around Peak 3844. And it's just a matter of taking this trail all the way back to Jean's Trailhead. And now as we close in on Jean's Trailhead, let's take a quick review of what we've done today. We did a 30-mile loop of Damsel Peak, starting at Jean's Trailhead and ending here. We took the Half Wilson Trail to the south side of Damsel Peak. We circled around to the east side of Damsel Peak. We looked at summit approaches on the south and the east side, and then we took a gully wash along the north side of Damsel Peak, between Damsel Peak and Gateway Peak. We took a very harrowing climb up to the saddle, from that wash up to the saddle of Gateway Peak, made the saddle, and then descended after resting on the summit for just a moment. We descended back to the Brownstone Basin on a series. First of all, through a descent wash from Gateway Peak Summit, and then we took washes through the Brownstone Basin, descended the Brownstone Basin, reconnected with the Half Wilson Trail, and here we are now. I guess the reason I'm pausing a little bit between words, pretty exhausted, but what an amazing adventure. Damsel Peak Loop plus Gateway Peak Summit.